G'day guys, these 207 E-Class, this one's an E250. I'm going to be really brief. I just made a video and I started talking about how much more reliable my car was, and all I've done is one set of pads and two batteries in it now, and an engine. Now I'm going to focus on this car. Tighten your front end, guys. So the bolts come loose on these. I'm not sure if it's the cabriolet or the big wheels or what the issue is, but these cabriolets, this is like the third one I've had, right? Knock, 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 knocking on heaven's door, loose bolts. Okay, 16, 18, 21, tighten your bolts. Key batteries constantly wearing out, use Energizer or Duracell, replace the key batteries, that's fine. Now, the main thing with these cars, surging, bucking, intermittent, lack of power, the variable geometry turbo malfunctioning, and bypassing gas in some type of limp home without the engine light coming on. Crank angle sensor. Change your crank angle sensor every second, third service. Okay, every 40 to 50,000 Ks, change the crank angle sensor on these cars, on the GLE, on the C-Class, they're all the same. Even the updated engines are having this issue in 2018 as well, guys. So, all this mysterious shit you're hearing about Mercedes, it's the crank angle sensor, generally speaking. Of course, they have other faults, but that's it. Now, other knocks that sound like the lower ball joints that get sort of like half a turn loose, engine mounts. Now, you can get this car to have steering without the engine running. I can't remember how to do it, but muck around with it and you'll be able to use your electric steering and hear the knocks. You can hear the knocks clearly then and on a road test, but just tighten your suspension and spare yourself the grief, right? The front caster arms have very soft bushes. It's a Mercedes. They're not cracked, they're not worn, but they move a lot more than most other cars out there. So there's no use replacing stuff when the bolts are actually loose. Okay, tighten them all, tighten the rear, tighten the sway bars. Now, when you turn your steering and you get a knock, maybe loose bolts, right? Or worn ball joints, fine. Now, you get exactly the same knock from the engine mounts. The engine mounts on these E-Classes are going from 20,000 Ks and they don't last past 50,000 Ks. Likely it's a city condition. I think if you live on the Autobahn on the rubber road, it wouldn't happen as much. But yeah, it's still not acceptable, but it happens, right? Rough gear shift in them, sort of, which normally is very unlike Mercedes. As far as I know, I don't know. I don't know about the gear shift in these cars, what goes on, but when you change your crank sensor, it should teach itself in, but you can use a scanner and teach it in according to the factory process. It should teach itself in, but you can do a crank angle position sensor readaptation. I don't think that's got anything to do with it, but you do get a bit of a bad shift in these cars, especially back to first gear. And that's basically it. So all these knocks in the front end, okay, front end, tighten the suspension, go over everything. When it knocks, exactly like the suspension knock, when it knocks with the stop start, it's the engine mounts. So they are hydraulic mounts as far as I know. And usually we haven't done them yet because we send them to Mercedes out of warranty. You buy a Mercedes-Benz for 180 grand, and what, I'm going to take your money to change the engine mount when they should be doing it? It's an unacceptable failure. Yeah, if the car's 6-8 years old, it's going to be hard, but when the car's 4 years old, guys, don't worry about the 3-year warranty. Go to Mercedes and get a goodwill gesture. The mounts are over $500 each genuine, or they were a few years ago. And that's about it. So with your E-Class, get your mechanic or yourself or Mercedes to tighten the suspension, and don't start changing parts for nothing on these cars. The only thing you need to change for nothing is the crank sensor. I'd throw the thing away every 40,000 Ks because you get very, very mysterious and different symptoms. The VGT bypassing, stalling, sudden jerking, which incidentally destroys the engine mounts very quickly. And then a lack of power. Depending on the customer, you'll get 20 different symptoms just from the one sensor. And most importantly, what I've noticed now with Audi, Mercedes, they've changed. The engine light used to come on and never turn off for everything, right? Unlike the Japs, like Subaru, that it'll flash and then confirm. Now what the Germans have done, They're making the engine light not come on easily at all. So we're getting 2018, 2019 Audis, and the light will flash and not record any codes while the car is sitting here misfiring its brain off. So the Germans are very smart. They've stopped you going in under the warranty period. So you'll have a problem, you'll go in, they'll say nothing's wrong with the car. And then once the car's out of warranty, you'll start getting slaughtered on it. So they're not as easy to diagnose. So guys, get rid of that crank sensor. It is causing no end of grief for so many thousands of vehicles. And that's what it is. So tighten your front end, crank angle sensor, key batteries every 3 months. Use Energizer or Duracell, I think. I mean, we use Varta in the past, and they make factory batteries for Volkswagen and Audi. But there's something about these Mercs and the key batteries as well. Overall, drive it gently, can't be thrashed. And, you know, my personal opinion, I don't know how these C63s and all those cars are actually going to make it when a simple E250 can't make it. So all these C-Class, C63s and all those fancy cars, these cars have a life of 80,000 Ks, just like all the Audis without the performance packages. So just because you spend 150 grand or whatever, doesn't mean it's a good car. They're beautifully made, but they have got inherent engine and electronic issues. So far, the cabriolets have proven to be quite reliable with the roof mechanism. And that's it. You're going to blow tyres every couple of weeks in potholes with this series of tyres. And that's it. I mean, very disappointing, but still a beautiful car. And it's less disappointing if the mechanics tighten the suspension and change that bloody crank sensor. It'll stop the owner going through repeated workshop visits. Hope that helps.